Hi guys, and welcome to another Slate Live in lockdown. This is number 13. My name is James Akers and I'm the UK Director for Slate Hair Education. And we have with us our little Dolly, and my sister is the camera girl today. So please, she's not a hairdresser. If you need some different angles, just let her know in the comments. And if you have any questions, then just pop them down in the comments and she will ask me, and I'll try and answer them as well as I can. Now, I'm just finishing off my sectioning pattern here, which I'm going to explain to you in just a second, which seems quite intricate, but really it's only sort of, how many is it? 1, 2, 3. It's only really 4 or 5 zones that we're working on. But I just want to get this all nice and clean and out of the way so I can quickly go through a quick brief of what we're going to be doing for you today. So what we want to try and achieve, or what I thought I wanted to try and achieve, was something that's going to be on the mullety side of things. So I want to leave some length in the exterior, but I don't want it just to be like an old 80s mullet where this is dead short on the sides and then just a little bit of length in the back. I want it to add a little bit, make it a bit more modern, make it a bit more interesting. And I like playing around with these sectioning patterns because I think the sectioning pattern in this haircut is really going to guide how I'm going to work through it. So I know obviously I have my technique which I'm going to have to choose that I do within the sections, but it's the actual zones themselves which is going to create this kind of erratic texture through it. So I'm just going to get this last little clip in and I'll talk you through the sections. So guys, let me know where you're tuning in from. If you're tuning in, just give us a little thumbs up and let us know where you are in the world. It's always nice to see. Okay, and we're in. So, if you want to come around here, Sophie, I'm just going to start where I'm going to be starting on the haircut. So what we've got is we've got this first zone in the back. Okay, so this is where I'm going to be starting. Alright, then I've separated these next 2 areas, which this comes round, up, down, up. That's going to be one area, and this side is going to be cut symmetrically the same as the first. And then if you see in the back here, we have this kind of almost like a lip-shaped section. You know what I mean? Like those sweets that you get the little lip shapes. It's like that through this back area here, and then a diamond section on the top. Now it seems a little bit like there's a lot going on, but really all I'm going to be doing is working with different types of layering throughout this haircut. So I'm going to start off in the back, working out shorter to longer, flattening in here and encouraging movement through there. And then what I'm going to do, the reason why I've come up in these areas quite high is because what I wanted is to have different lengths coming through here. So we're going to have a shorter area in here and then slightly longer areas through here. We're also going to really take down this fringe area quite layered. And at the end, what we're going to see is we're going to have this really loose, shaggy feel, and I'm going to maybe strengthen something up in the fringe when it's all dry for you. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to turn the bowl to the side here and we'll start working on my first section. Okay, let's get that down. Like so. Perfect. So guys, let us know where you're tuning in from. I need some scissors quickly, will always help.
Linda from London says hello.
Oh, hi Linda, how are you? Hope you're doing good. Right. Okay, now what I have to be really aware of here is if I'm going to put the head down, then my finger position has to relate to that. So I've put the head down to make it easier for me to elevate and get into my sections. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my fingers in and I'm going to lift quite high. I'm actually going to turn the doll the other way because it's a bit easier for my hands and for you to see. So I'm going to come in and I really want to take down the interior but leave quite a lot of length. So to do that I need to lift quite dramatically, then I'm going to work in this nice layered cutting angle. And I'm always thinking about the relevance to my fingers to the head shape. So if the head's down and I want to lift, I know I need to lift more. And what I'm going to do is just start to assess how that's starting to look. So we can see, really taking that down, we've left quite a lot of length through here. Now I actually want to go a little bit harder than that, a little bit stronger. So I'm going to take that down a little bit shorter. I think it's really fun doing these haircuts, playing around with lots of different layering techniques. I'm only working up to where I can keep my fingers flat. I can keep the tension, and then I'll recomb. And recomb. Always making sure that I work all the way to the bottom. Now, just because this is the length I have now, doesn't necessarily mean that that's the length I'm going to be keeping at the end. I just want to leave that so I can play around with that a little bit more later. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start to over direct, just back to the previous to allow for the hairline. So back to the previous, and I'll be doing the same throughout on both sides. So if we were numbering the sections, it would be 2 to 1, 3 to 2, 4 to 3, and so forth. Or we could just say back to the previous section. So guys, let me know where you're tuning in from. I hope that helps. I'm going to work in the same way. So now I'm going to remove the previous cut hair and just take enough of a guideline. And then my new section. So this will be section 3 now, coming on to section 2. So my shape essentially will be quite square when I check this horizontally. And really now just bringing that back to that previous section. I feel like when we're sectioning, it's very difficult to be exact. When you say you're going back to the previous every time, you can be very, very pernickety with it. When I use over direction, I tend to use it more of a feeling as to where I am on the head shape and to what I want to create. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just lift the head up, just so you guys can see a little bit about what this is starting to look like here. So we can see by layering it, we've encouraged bend in the hair. Okay, we've got this length. The reason I over-directed, because look, there's less hair through here because the hairline comes up. So if I didn't over-direct, that might have come a little bit too high. So I've kept that nice. And I'm just going to come and just do a little cross-check, just to make sure I'm on the right track. Now I need to start to elevate this up high to where I cut it. We can see we've got that nice, clean, square, horizontal shape.
Jackie wants to know what make of scissors you're using.
Hi Jackie, thanks for the question. Yeah, these are actually, there is an old pair of, they're called Nicks. You can see, N-I-C, Nicks. And they're 4.5, size 4.5 inches. Really nice, really dainty scissor. I much prefer a lighter scissor, but I use these and I use wings as well. I've got a couple of pairs of wings that I like to go between. What size scissors do you guys all like using? Let us know. Okay, so that's my first side done. Now because of the trickiness of the angle, I'm not actually going to change body position here. I'm going to keep the same body position. I'm going to change the way I comb the hair. So now, to make sure that I'm using the over direction, what I'm going to do is, rather than comb it, I'll just pop a clip in there. Rather than combing it onto my section, I'm going to comb it back, and I'm going to, rather than bring my body too far back, I'm going to keep my body forward. That way I know I'm going to be over-directing back onto the previous. So as you can see, I'm combing from the new hair onto the old hair, elevating up, and working onto my guide. I think, you know, it's like I've said previously, as humans we have tendencies. So as long as we're aware what those tendencies are, then we know how to battle them. Like we have a tendency to pull the hair towards you. So there's no right and wrong on what side you're going to stand on, but for me I know that if I stand on this side, I'm more likely to make this side shorter if I do both sides on this side. So that's why I'm overcompensating and over-directing the hair back. I always just like to try and keep my work as clean as possible when I'm working. Like I want to see every section in the hair, and that way I know that I'm going to be clean. Comb in, my fingers follow the comb. And what I do after this section is I'll just do a really little cross check just to make sure that I'm on the right path. So I know that my balance is looking in the right way, because I might be overcompensating a bit too much. Just over-directing a little bit too much. If we have a look in here, we can see just a little bit too much in there. So I'm just going to come through and balance that out. And that's why we do that little check. I'm going to keep the hair really nice and wet, because it's tricky, quite fiddly working with these lengths, with all these different sections. So keeping the hair wet give you a much better control throughout your haircut. So just that little touch. Shorter. Now, I don't know about you guys and where you guys are from, but for me, I've noticed so many more mullets coming into the salon. All these really cool girls coming in and wanting these mullet looks. So it's really important that as hairdressers, we know how we can achieve these looks, but you know, maybe doing it in your own way of making it a little bit more modern than the old thing. Things always come back around. Like, I never thought mullets actually would, but they did. And now I think, you know, actually on the right person, done the right way, they can look really cool. And this is a little, just an experiment. I haven't done a haircut with this exact section in before. So it's just a little play, really. When I told my sister, who's filming, that I was doing a mullet, she couldn't quite understand what I was doing. She didn't understand why, so it'll be interesting to see what she thinks at the end.
It's because you just picture like an old classic sort of mullet.
Yeah.
I was a bit confused.
She was like, could you do the haircut on me? And I was like, I don't think you'll like this one.
Miles Coleman says, hi from Milo, loving these sessions, James.
Oh, hi Milo, how you doing, mate? Hope you're good.
And Jackie said she usually uses 5s, but needs to invest in more scissors.
Yeah, nice. I like a 5-inch scissor as well. I think it's a nice amount. I'll tell you why. A lot of people ask me why I use small scissors. And there's 2 reasons, really. Reason number 1 is because I only really like to cut up to my knuckle, because that's where I have tension in my fingers, and that's how long that blade is. If I've got a big blade, I never come past there, so it seems pointless as I work in retract anyway. The other reason is because if I move these a little bit, you can see that my blade is only moving that little bit. Now, if these scissors were longer, if I moved it a little bit, can you see how much more the movement there's going to be? So I'm just going to have less control. So that's the reason why I like to use a smaller scissor.
Elliot Rowley says Tiger King inspired the haircut.
Yeah, Tiger Kings, exactly.
And Arnav says hi from India.
Hello Arnav, nice to have you with us. So I'm just coming into my last section through here, and then I'm going to do a little check. Maybe that's why Tiger King was so popular. All the hair. Right, so I'm just going to do another little cross check through here now. So starting in the top, remove the hair I'm not interested in at the minute. Elevate up. Got that nice square shape again. Now when I'm cross-checking, I'm really just refining. So I'm not changing anything in my haircut. If I can see that there's a problem, then I'll go back to it and take something else out in the original technique. It's always good to cross-check because it's the way that we know that we're in the right path. And now I'm happy with this, I feel comfortable moving on to my next area. Now as you can see, all I've done here is I've flattened out the widest point of the head the most, so in the middle. Okay, that's what creating that square horizontal shape does, is it leaves slightly more length towards where that head is rounding. Okay, I've pushed the hair out vertically, layered it, slimming this down, allowing the hair to move a little bit more and allowing us to keep some of that outline. Now, whether I keep all the outline at the end or not, I'm not sure. I'm going to see how it looks when it's dry. Okay, now what we are going to do, you're going to come to the front. I'm going to now start working on one of these sides through here. So let's start with the right side first. Now, I'm just doing a very basic layer here. However, the sectioning, what I've done with the sectioning is going to make this much more interesting because it's going to put these shorter and longer areas within the haircut internally. So as we style it at the end, it's not just going to look like short and then long, okay? It's going to kind of add this real softness without having to do too much pointing and too much texturizing. So I'm going to start off with this highest point because what I don't want to do is take that too much shorter. Well, I don't want to come round to that and then realise that I've gone too short. So I'm going to come through here. I'm just going to have a little look at what length I want to be. I'm going to make sure that the head's nice and straight. And from here I'm just going to come in. Now if I think it's there that I want to be, I'm just going to bring that a little bit longer to start off with, just to be safe. As you can see, in the same way, I'm working a layering technique, which means that vertically I'm going shorter internally to longer externally. Whether it's a slight amount or a lot, okay, it depends on how much weight you want to remove internally and how much weight you want to leave in the external. Now I know that I want to leave quite a bit of length externally, which is why my angle, or why my elevation is quite high. The more I elevate, the more length I'm going to maintain, but the more weight I'm going to remove internally. Does that make sense, guys? Let me know, give us a thumbs up if that makes sense. Also, please, if you like what you're seeing, please like and share the video. If you know anyone that might benefit from it, please then tag them, it'd be awesome. And let us know where you're tuning in from. If you have any questions at all, please just let me know. So I think I was a little bit safe there, and I'm just going to take that a touch shorter. So not a lot, just a real small amount. Combing away the sections I'm not interested in. Coming in, elevating up. And just taking that down there.
Kathy says hi from New Zealand.
Hi Kathy, thank you for tuning in.
And Malty is watching from Trinidad.
Ah, hello Malty. Trinidad, what's it like there? But it's beautiful, isn't it? I wouldn't mind isolating myself in Trinidad for a few months. What time is it where you guys are? What time is it here? 12:30 here. So let us know what time it is where you guys are. Okay, that's my first section, alright? Now, what I'm going to do now is start to work my way round into the back here. So from this point, what I'm going to start to do is come on the base and just work round into the back. Now what's going to happen is these lengths are going to start to disconnect. Now to save confusion for myself, I'm going to get rid of some of this hair. Guys, let me know if this is making sense to you. Let me know if you have any questions. Now, I've got my guide from the underneath, from what I've just cut. I'm just going to start to lift. And what I'm doing is I'm coming on the base. So I'm going to pull the hair straight out from the head. That way we're going to connect, hopefully, when we get back to this centre point in the back. Remove that hair now, and how I was previously, I wanted to build weight towards the front, okay, so I was over directing back. Now I'm taking my guideline and I'm pulling it straight out from the head. Now we can see now our disconnection. Can you see the length that we cut previously here? That's the underneath, and as we elevate up, that's our new length. So what we're going to have is these different tiers of layering all kind of moving around, which I think will look really cool. I think it's always interesting doing these things on dolls as well. So they have an interesting texture of hair. But I think, you know, I would definitely do something like this in the salon as well. I think if you think about diluting this, you could do something very similar with a similar sectioning pattern, or leaving the lengths much longer would make it much more soft, much more salon friendly, let's say, depending on the sort of salon that you work in.
What made you want to become a hairdresser, James? Lauren has asked.
Okay, good question. Well, to be honest with you, it's a bit of a strange one. It wasn't something that I always wanted to do. When I was about 16, I was studying psychology at sixth form college, and I didn't really want to go to university, so I was getting my hair cut actually by this guy, and he said, what are you doing, what do you want to do? And I was like, oh, I don't know. And he said, well, if you fancy doing hairdressing, I'll give you a job. And that's kind of how I started. I got my first job when I was 16. He said he thought I'd be good at it, and he said to me at the time, he said, it's good money and there's loads of women. So for me, I was like a 16-year-old guy, I was like, yeah, sold. So that is how it worked. And the first thing, before I got into, really understood anything about cutting hair or the history of hair cutting, and becoming passionate about that, I became passionate about the environment. So working with young people all the time, like all my friends were getting jobs in like offices and as plumbers and building sites and stuff, and I was like, well, I'm working with like fun people all day, you know, different people I'm seeing every day and getting to converse with. So yeah, I think that was the thing I fell in love with at first, and then I started to really get excited about cutting hair and the physics of cutting hair. So if I lift this here, then that's going to be slightly different to lifting it here, and how's it going to fall and how's it going to work on bone structure. And I found it's so hard, like to think that if I lift something here, all of those different things are going to do different things down here. So to understand that, and it was like yearning for like me to be able to understand, which I didn't at the time. So that's when I focused on giving myself the best education that I could by going to work in good companies and working with people that I admired and that I aspired to be like. So yeah, that's me. Hope that answers your question. Right guys, so as you can see now, what I mean about that as well, about the physics of cutting hair. Now look, when I cut this here, okay, What's really important is it's not about what length it is here or how much hair's on the floor down there. What's important is where it's going to fall on here. So let's have a little look. So now this length is actually sitting here, okay? Which means now this is where the head sticks out a bit. So that means that that's slimming this, and then these lengths are sitting over the hair that we did in the underneath. So if I pull this all out so you can see the underneath as well, we can see our disconnection quite clearly. Can you see that? So it's just going to evoke and encourage movement. If I'd have just laid everything from here down to there, you're going back to that 80s hillbilly mullet a little bit too much, I think. But they can still look cool on the right person, but that's just not what I want to do today. Okay, so now, what I've done is, from here I've worked all the way into the back, okay? Now what I want to do, for balance purposes, I want to do the same on the other side now. So rather than now coming and working this all the way through the front, which we will be doing, I want to get my balance in through the back, okay? Because I think that's going to be quite tricky. And I always like to tackle the tricky things first, so let's do that. So guys, let me know, what sort of things do you like to do when you're sectioning? Do you tend to section off haircuts before you do them at work? Do you tend to just kind of go as you are and go with the flow and change it up when you're cutting the hair, or how do you tend to do it? How do you tend to find it clearer? I like sectioning off sometimes because I feel like I have then a plan. Do you know what I mean? I have a plan and it's very clear to me what I'm going to be doing. It's
quite dark looking at it from here. Maybe move that over that way a bit.
Better? Like that?
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah? Alright, cool. It's the lighting pro, putting their word in there. It's very good. Guys, let us know how you're doing in lockdown. Let us know if you're managing to practice at all and how you're practicing and whether this is your practice, just taking some time out to watch watch some education. Still not good?
Just get better light coming from the window, so that's probably, yeah, that's much better.
Alright.
Yeah.
We're in. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do now to get my balance is, for me with balance is very tricky, okay? So what I like to do is I always like to leave my second side a little bit longer. So from here what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull my first side up, find that length. Now I know that if I cut that there, that's going to be longer, okay? So what I can do is I might even be able to just get that in my fingers just to really get a balance. And that should be my balance now. As long as my elevation is the same as previously, that should be my balance.
Can you mention why you've adjusted the head slightly down?
Yeah, of course. Now, the reason why I've put the head down really is for my own comfort. Now, when the head is straight up, okay, I'm always thinking about the head being straight up, so it's still going to be relevant to how my fingers are. It's very relevant. Now, this is literally just for comfort, because when I come around here, this is going to be quite uncomfortable. Whereas when the head's down, I'm going to find that much easier. And what I think is really important for us as well as hairdressers is that we don't try and screw up our backs too early. So, for that client to be moving her head around a bit for the first, for 45 minutes while we do their hair, or half an hour while we're cutting their hair, I think, they can, I'm sure that's not going to bother them too much, whereas if we're doing it for 10 hours a day, it's going to bother us quite a lot. So I'm just starting again in that same fashion, elevating that, making sure my fingers are kept nice and straight, elevating right up. And what I'm going to do is just make sure that that first section I have a balance in the bottom, because I know I'm balanced at the top because I've connected visually. So when I check my balance, I can put the head back up as well. So just get these two elements. I'm just going to pull it down. Cool, that looks pretty good to me. So what I'm going to do now is, to make sure that I don't get a point in the middle back here, I'm going to have to, again, in the same way, come on the base, straight out from the head. If I use too much over direction, I'm going to build into a corner in this back, which I don't want, okay? I want this to be nice and seamless. So there might be a little bit of a corner unless my over direction and balance is completely perfect, but I can just come through horizontally and blend that out at the end, okay? So what we're going to do now, like we did previously, I'm just going to remove that hair just to make myself more comfortable and clear it in my head. Get it all dolly nice and strong and calm back round. Make big enough sections for the texture and density of hair. I'm going to comb it. Can you notice how my comb, I'm not coming from this way. If I come from this way, I'm going to use over direction. If I come from this way, naturally, I'm more likely to be straight out from the head. Now with the finish on this, for me, if you've watched my work before, I've mentioned this quite a few times before, that with my work, what I like is I don't like anything that's really, I like elements of things. So if something's really strong and really graphic, I feel like there has to be an element of softness. If something's really soft, then there has to be an element of strength in it. So this is going to be a very soft haircut. So I'm going to probably add some element of strength in this when the hair's dry. I'm thinking something kind of fringy. So I think that would be quite interesting to see. That would be quite cool. Now I've also got another live coming up on the 15th of May with the Curlio Project Academy, which would be really cool. And I'm going to do something much stronger for that, I think. I think I'm going to be looking at working with you know, something more of a graduated feel, so something much heavier, bulkier, with some funny changes in the balance, which I think will be quite interesting. Because you know, the last haircut I did on the live as well was a soft little layer and long hair on Monica, which was really nice and really fun. This is then pushing this layering to like the next level, you know, going much stronger with it. Something much more disconnected and a bit more interesting. And then we're going to look at doing some graduated shapes as well, and something much stronger and much more graphic, which I think will be quite cool. Cool to see the difference. So my body position again, staying behind at the moment, depending on whatever's easiest for me. Now, you know, it doesn't really make a difference, like I said, as long as you're aware of what you're more likely to do. And there we can see again our disconnection from our first zone into our second. You can see that? Now with disconnection like this, I like to cut everything blunt first, and then when the hair's dry is when I'll start to break it up with the point cutting. Because I don't want to, I want to be able to see how much I want to dishevel it and break it up and texturize it. If I do it in wet hair, I can't tend to really see, and also I can't control how much I'm taking out. Okay, so on dry hair for me, I always point cutting on dry hair. So let me know what you guys think, whether you point cut wet hair, dry hair. And if you have any questions, please ask away. That's what this is here for. Let us know where you're tuning in from, and also please like and share the video. It means a lot to us. So as I'm working as well, I'm always just assessing how my shape looks. I think it's really important, you know, we sometimes get so stuck into the technique of what we're doing, we forget about the hair, what we're leaving behind, which is the most important thing, I think. Wouldn't you agree, Sophie? Mm-hmm. Okay, so again, just keeping everything really nice and clean, so then I have a nice understanding of where I am. Keeping my elevation the same. And keeping nice and controlled through my fingers. my cutting. As I'm cutting, to make sure my line is as clean as possible, come in and retract, retract. If I just come like this, I'm going to push the hair, so I'm more likely to build into more length. So to make sure you get the cleanest line, try using the retraction. Whoop. Oh, very hot in there, actually.
Is it?
I'm wearing a bit more than you. This is the only time I get dressed, by the way, when I do these videos. The rest of the time I'm just...
Elliot says, shape looks cool, mate. Katie says, Pixie's eye point cut on wet. And Jackie says, both point cut on wet and dry.
Nice. Thanks, Elliot. Yeah, that sounds cool. I think the only reason I don't do much point cutting in wet hair is just because I find it harder to get my basic shape with my balance, but there's no right and wrong. So I think we're on the right track. Yeah. And what's really nice about these shapes is, although they're very technical really when you look at the sectioning and what you're doing, it can just give a really nice soft feel. So I think, you know, we're so focused, a lot of people think that precision cutting is literally just, you know, like real strong box bobs and harsh, you know, like harsh lines everywhere. I think for me, I like to use precision cutting to create softness within the haircuts. So I think that can actually be, you know, without, when you're creating this softness with precision, it means you have to really think about where you're putting the weight and where you're removing the weight from, which is why the sectioning becomes so important. So I'm just coming through my last couple of sections now in this back area. It's funny how taste changes though, because I remember I always, when I was younger, when I was really started getting into like precision haircuts and starting to understand it, I was so obsessed with anything with like a strong line in it. And I still like strength and graphic haircuts, but I find things like this a little bit more intricate and a bit more fun. A bit more interesting.
Callum wants to know, would this also work with more length or would it change elements?
It would definitely work with more length, yeah. I mean, that's what I was saying earlier, like all of these things, you know, they can be diluted, so this would be awesome on something, you know, like even my length or longer, would look really cool. And then you can just, you know, decide what lengths you want to take the layers, how extreme you want to do it. You know, if you wanted to leave more in the length in the outlines, for example, you can either elevate more or just leave the layers much longer. So there's lots of different, you know, this is probably a much more extreme version of it. You certainly could make this much more client friendly, you know, much softer. So I'm just now going to come through. I can just see I've got a little bit more weight on this side. I'm just going to come and take that out. Make sure that we're all going to be blending very nicely. Can you see it there? Is that better?
Mm-hmm.
So just from here, elevate that up a little bit more. Just make sure I get the balance that I want in the back. Like I said previously, I find balance a real tricky thing to really get right. You know, if we think about how balanced our haircuts really are, you know, we can get away with, you know, a little bit really, and I think to truly get a real true balance in a haircut is very, very difficult. And balance, I'm talking about, first of all, being even, and secondly, balance is in how the balance works to the face.
Elliot says now, where are you finding inspiration at the moment, mate? Anywhere we may not have heard of? Elliot Rowley?
Elliot Rowley, yeah. That's a good friend of mine. It's a really good question, actually. To be honest, you know, like probably all of us, you know, I watch other educators all the time. You know, I think it's really important to not be closed-minded and think that your way is the right way and you can't learn from anyone else. I always learn from people all the time, so I'm constantly, you know, if there's any Facebook lives or Instagram lives, I'm always watching them to keep myself up. I don't really, you know, when people say they get inspired by certain things like, you know, nature or whatever, I know Michael, the CEO of Slate Hair Education, he gets really inspired by nature and animals, and he actually, you know, it's not one of those things he just says to sound artistic. He does all these fans and he does all these really cool little things. So I think, yeah, for me, I've always been someone that just gets more inspired by hair and seeing, like, actually seeing people's hair and then trying to put my own twist on it. So as we can see now, guys, if you want to have a little look through here, you can just see we've got this really nice balance now. I'm just going to come through from that bottom. We can see straight away that separates where our disconnection is. And I'm just cleaning that up. Cool. So now that's the back, the majority of the back of the haircut there, okay, in my foundation technique. All right, we can, like I said, we can really play around with the outlines afterwards, but that's the back area completed. Now what I'm going to do for you is start to work forward to the front. So I'm just going to change the head position slightly. You're right there.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually much harder than you can imagine holding a camera or a phone for that amount of time. So very nice that Sophie's stepped in for me. I'm going to break from the Sims, which was tough. Right, so I'm going to go back to my first side now, okay? I'm going to do a quick recap for you. So we started off with this zone in the bottom area at the back. We elevated up and cut a layered cutting angle, shorter to longer. We then over-directed roughly back to the previous to create a square shape horizontally, okay? Then in my next zone, what I've done is I've come and lifted, if you come a bit closer just over the top here so you can see this area, okay, we've lifted on the highest point of that zone and cut again a line, a layered cutting angle, shorter to longer vertically, okay, and then from there follow the head round into the back, making sure that the bottom lengths of our second zone were longer than the shortest of our first. So that's going to sit over there. Okay, and do exactly the same both sides, cross-check to make sure that we nice and meet in the middle, okay? No corners in the back. So now what we're going to do is start to work towards the front. Now, can we see, what's really important here is if I want to keep any length through here, look how the hairline comes up, okay, quite dramatically. So as soon as I start to layer around here, my lengths are going to start to come shorter very drastically. Now I want to leave some length through here, but I know I want to take that fringe a bit shorter in the layering. So what we're going to do is from that first point again, take a new section. Just going to remove the hair I'm not working on. Guys, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask.
Jenny said she's just joined. Will it stay on Facebook for the day? Yes.
It will be on Facebook forever until Facebook take it off. So yeah, you can always go back. This is the 13th Slate Live we've done. So go back, we've got plenty more to see with plenty more techniques, mainly on when we were allowed to see humans, then we were working on models as well, so we've got some cool haircuts, so please go back, check it out. Okay, now, from this point, I'm going to work straight out from the head, so on the base, can see my guide very clearly. And start to really elevate that hair nice and high, so I'm leaving hair in the outline down here. Guys, please let me know if you have any questions about anything. It doesn't necessarily have to be about this haircut, it can be about any haircut. And if you have anything that you really want to see in the next live, then please let us know. We've got, I hope you guys have checked out Davide as well. He's been doing these razor tutorials, which are really cool. He's put together this really cool coarse razor for us at Slate, which would be awesome. And some more exciting news actually, our academy is expanding, so we're getting bigger. So as we, we've only been open since January, but we've been so busy and had so many requests, which is really great. So we've actually now, we're going to take the 2 floors above us as well. So we're actually going to have 3 floors in our academy, which is going to be super fun. So we can have all different courses going on, different times. With our courses, they're still very intimate. So we're still, at the moment we're 4 to a teacher. And if we come out to, we're maximum sort of 7 per teacher. So we really like to make sure that we try and give one-to-one education even when we're in a group. Okay guys, so now what I'm doing in my next sections, I'm just taking each section out to the middle. Okay, so if I've got 1 and 2, I'm 1.5, all right? And I'm going to work that way throughout the head. So basically from the base. I'm not really building into any length towards that front. So my body position comes round, and when I'm standing here, I can see my over direction, which really helps me. We can see we've got that now, we've kept that length. Now, look what happens now as we start to work up, how much shorter this is going to come. If you want to sit up there, you can. I can move the doll around.
That's all right.
Okay guys, trying to keep everything really clean as I'm working. Same over direction as before.
Corinna says, well done guys, loved the course. Open an academy in Oz next.
That's the plan. That is the plan. So again, I'm really just, even though this is going to be a really soft shape, I'm still very focused on keeping everything really clean as I'm working through. Not working past that area of my knuckle, keeping the cutting line really nice and clean. Because that way, obviously on a doll it's not going to grow out, but it's going to blow dry really nicely. And on a human, it's going to make it grow out that little bit better. And that's what's going to make, Mrs. Jones or whoever she is come back to you as opposed to someone else. That little bit of attention to detail, clients notice it. And clients notice it not only in the way that you're working, but the way that their hair grows out. It does make a difference, I promise. Let's do one more section through here. It's going to be interesting to see how balanced I can make this. Working the other side, I always find it tricky doing one side than the other. But it's nice not to always start into the same place as well. So guys, we can really start to see now. If you have a look at how, by just cutting it with elevation, nothing down, nothing on the skin, that's really taken the shape of the hairline. I'm going to keep working through into the centre in the same way, and I'll get cutting, so don't take up too much of your, what day is it, Sunday? Sunday. I'm losing all track of days and times. Guys, let me know where you are, if you're allowed to work yet, because we're still not allowed to work over in London, in England. I don't think any, apart from essential workers, which we're not considered yet. Although maybe we should be, seeing some of the things that are happening, people cutting their own hair. So by doing this, I'm creating a fringe, but it's going to be really layered, so it's going to be quite a soft fringe, which I'm going to really play on when the hair's dry a little bit later. Because this length's going to sit over, it's going to be really interesting. I'm really happy with how this shape's coming out, actually. It's going to be cool, I think. So again, elevating through. And what we remember, guys, is this, where I am now, where I was back here, has all come from this first section here. So my guide here is so important that I get that the right length. When I'm cutting that, I'm thinking about how this is going to relate to the front to the back. Okay, really important that we're really thinking about that when we're cutting hair, we're not just cutting hair. I get it a lot with the guys that I teach in the salon, with the apprentices when they're doing, find it especially when layering hair, and layering long hair. And I try and get them to tell me a little bit more about why they start doing things, because they always just say, oh, okay, yeah, we're going to trim the length and put a little bit of a layer in it, and it's like, okay, why are we layering it? What's it going to do? And how are we going to pull it out? Or we're just going to pull it out here. And then, you know, what I find is a lot of hairdressers end up doing that haircut, and that on long hair, only doing that haircut on long hair, never changing it, which for me would just become so tedious and so boring. I think, you know, open your eyes to hair cutting and understanding hair cutting a little bit more means that you're really going to be able to just have a little bit more fun, even when just cutting, you know, cutting quite mundane haircuts in the salon.
Katie, I think, is asking how long you would allow for a haircut like this.
I think an hour is fine. I think, you know, I would give myself an hour in the salon doing something like this. You know, the only thing, I give myself an hour for everything, to be honest. But I think for me, the only time is I give myself more time is I'll occasionally give myself a double appointment, and that's when I am doing something on really, like, so let's say if I did something like this, but on really thick hair, that I'm really, getting ready for Australian Academy, really thick hair, and something quite intricate, there's no way I'm going to be done in an hour. It's going to take me 20 minutes to section it off, so. Alright, okay. Guys, I'm going to try and do exactly the same now on the other side, okay?
Lauren thinks that hairdressers are looking at the same as pubs for reopening November, December time.
Where are you from, Lauren? Let us know where you are.
Here, I think.
England,
she said we might be looking the same time as pubs, November, December. I think she's from England.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's quite scary, isn't it? November, December. The thought of that. It's really scary. Everyone I'm quarantined with won't have any hair left if we leave it that late. My dolls are going to be bald. All sorts of troubles. Right, guys, so I'm just trying to do exactly the same thing on the other side, yeah? So being aware of my body position, being aware of my elevation, keeping my sections very similar, or the same as the other side. Doing the same amount of sections on both sides, another really good way to control your balance. Can you see okay?
Apparently some salons in Australia are still open.
Yeah, I've seen that. My friend Clive, I saw that he's just opened his salon called Our Place. And yeah, but they've just had to restrict, you know, they're only allowed two stylists in there at once. So maybe that's something that we'll be looking at doing in the future, I'm not sure. I think that definitely, you know, the world is going to be a different place after this. I think everything is going to be affected. It's a very strange situation. Now again, look at my body position. I make sure I can see my over direction. If I come past my knuckle, I recomb, get my tension, and clean. Okay? And just start to have a little bit of feel now, these lengths, alright? start to see how they're feeling. They're feeling pretty good. So guys, let me know what you think of the shape so far. I guess it's hard to really see, but it's going to be quite an interesting one, I think. It's always nice just to have the time as well to play around.
Alexis says hello.
Hi, Alexi.
Sorry.
Oh.
We just had Alexa answering us.
She's going to go again now. Oh, no.
She's a rascal, Alexa. That's what I'm saying. Okay, so I've just been put off by our robot. I'm just going to take a slightly smaller section there because I couldn't see my guide. I think what's really important about hair cutting in how you work and to minimalise mistakes, it really is discipline. You have to be disciplined with your sections. You know, if you're running a little bit behind and you end up with a section, you go, oh, I can't quite see it, and you go, I must be right, fine, and just cut it. That's when mistakes happen, you know. So I think always take your time, go back to it, because otherwise you're going to end up taking more time trying to fix mistakes later in the haircut later on.
Jackie says great shape, looks great.
Thanks,
Real
Jackie.
softness.
Yeah.
Elliot says nice, slim, loose shape, can see where you're going with it.
Thanks guys, thank you very much. Guys, let us know if you would approach this haircut in a different way and how you would, or if you would do it in a similar way. I quite like sometimes playing around with, as opposed to disconnecting a fringe straight away, playing around a little bit with connecting it internally first, so there's a real flow to it when the haircut moves.
Janaya just woke up in Pittsburgh. Can you quickly let her know what cut you're working on?
Absolutely. So what I'm going to do is, I've just got this much hair to finish off with. I'm going to do a little cross check, and then I'm going to quickly recap what we've done so far. Then we've just got our last two panels. And I'm going to blow dry it for you, and then refine all the outlines and play around with the shape.
And Corinna says, what deciding factors would come into it when doing this haircut, e.g. what face shape, etc.?
Okay, yeah, interesting. So I think, you know, when working internally like this, what we want to think about is the bone structure here as well. So if there's anything really wide up here, then where do we want the hair to sit on it to slim? Okay. Do we want to be building the head out? So if the head was really flat here, then maybe we could have kept this a bit longer and put a graduated shape in, which is still keeping that length kicking out. That's going to build the head up. If we're going to flatten out a flat head shape, maybe this is the wrong technique. So I think, you know, it's up to you to decide on what length you want to see on your clients, where you want to see the length, where you want to see it around the face. You know, this fringe, we could have, if we laid this all much longer, then this fringe would have sat something around here, which would have been really like moody and really cool. So I think it's very dependable, you know. Like if I'd have taken this section, okay, much lower down, then I'm going to be leaving much more weight down here. If this section's higher up, I'm going to be elongating the face a little bit more. If I take this much lower down, I'm going to be shortening and widthening the head shape a little bit more. So it really depends on the individual. Now, suitability, we talk about it all the time, and yes, it is about bone structure and it is about face shape, but more often than not, it's actually about the person, I think. You know, it's more about their personality and how they feel with it, how they feel comfortable. I think that's what's really important. Because, for example, if Sophie, behind the camera there, had the perfect face shape for this haircut, it wouldn't work with her because she would not feel comfortable with it, it wouldn't suit her personality. Agree?
Yes.
You never know, she might go crazy in the lockdown in a few weeks and ask for a virgin. So I'm just going to get these last couple of sections in. You can see really nice and connecting in there now. Just going to blend that through a little touch. Elevating everything right up. If I cross-check this down there, I'm not checking what I've cut. I've cut it up here, so I need to check it up here. It's really important when you're cross-checking. Okay, so that's the underneath done. Now let's quickly just go through, for those of you that have recently joined in, a quick recap of what we've done so far, okay?
Sorry.
Okay, so what we did is we had this first zone coming from about the occipital bone, okay, horizontally across, and we worked vertically in a layering technique, shorter internally to longer externally, with a square shape, so using over direction to create a square shape horizontally. Okay, we then came through into our highest point of our next zone. So if you want to come over again so quickly, just have a little look at this. So from here, that's going to be our highest point, okay? And worked, again, a cutting line, working shorter in to longer, okay? So a nice layered cutting angle, all right? I then worked on the base, all the way back into the center. So making sure that this hair on the top is going to be longer than the hair on the underneath, if we can see that disconnection quite clearly. Okay. Then did exactly the same on the other side. The reason I did that side after working half is because I wanted to get my balance perfect before I moved on to the front. Okay, then working in a similar way, from my guideline in the middle, I then worked taking everything in between each section, okay, and worked around the head all the way to the center, working into this fringe. Now when you're doing that, be really aware as the hairline comes up quite dramatically, so is the length going to come up, okay? And then exactly the same on the other side, all right? Now that is where we're at the minute. So what I want to do now is start to have a little play around with some more disconnected areas, which are going to be these areas, okay? So let's have a little look. Now, don't ever think about the outlines too much. Don't let the outlines dictate what you're going to do internally, because they can always be edited and changed at the end. I think that's really important to remember. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to work this back area first, because I'm going to make this slightly shorter. Now, what I'm going to do is, because this is going to be longer than my shorter areas, I don't need to be too careful about picking up this hair, because it's going to be shorter already, but anyway, than what I'm cutting now. And what I'm going to do is quite simply work, first of all, a vertical cutting section in the centre. I'm going to elevate that up, right up, making sure my head's straight, yeah, nice. And I'm thinking about what length I'm going to want this and what length we have here. So I'm going to come now. I'm just thinking about how this is all going to fall, and I'm going to work shorter into longer. Again, another layering section. just going to take that down a touch more.
Would this still work on someone with fine hair?
Absolutely. I find that these actually work really well with people with fine hair because, you know, a lot of people, when they have a client with fine hair, they straight away go to doing a one-length haircut because they think it's going to make their hair look thicker. Which, granted, it might slightly, but really, you know, I find that actually sometimes celebrating the hair being a bit finer and layering it all, and not worrying about having a bit of weakness through the ends, actually can work really nice. Now I'm just going to over-direct this back to my previous.
Elliot says, do you ever use any other cutting tools?
I'm going to learn. So I sometimes use thinning scissors. Use thinning scissors to break up an edge, like very, very, very occasionally. But I do sometimes use a thinning scissor in a client situation. The problem for me is I don't know how to well enough. So until I know how to use something well enough, I'm not gonna use it. I'm going to learn how to use a razor. I've been watching Davide's live, Davide Spinelli doing our Slate Lives with us. So I've been watching his, and we're going to go through some stuff together. So he's going to teach me a little bit more about it because I think that the effect it can give is really cool. And I think, you know, on haircuts like this it can be amazing. But for me, I want to be able to do everything with these, and then I can then start to experiment and play around. Now, using a razor is going to give me something that I cannot get with a scissor. So that's why it's to be used, you know. I think it's an amazing tool, and when used correctly, I think it's awesome. I think the problem, you know, the reason why there's all this silliness about razors and thinning scissors is basically because the majority of the time they're used to hide mistakes. So they're not used in the correct way. They're used to hide mistakes that you've put in with your scissors. So then they go into, you know, using razors and thinning scissors to basically blend away lines. So that's why I think that there's this, you know, this big hurrah about, you know, you should use them, you shouldn't use them.
What is the name for this haircut? It's a mullet style, isn't it?
Yeah, sort of mullety, disconnected layers. When there's so many things going on, you know, it's not really I don't think there's a name for it. I'm sure lots of people have done things similar haircuts like this, but for me this would just be disconnected layers. So a layering technique using disconnection to create a mullety feel. You know, the balance of it and the sectioning and everything is just like my taste and something that I've come up with. So I don't expect everyone to always like what I do as well. It's, you know, it's my feel and what I like. But what hopefully people can get from it is a little bit of, well, I like that little bit, so maybe I can use that, and, you know, maybe this bit will make sense even though I don't like it. I don't like to teach haircuts. I like to help people understand about hair cutting. That's what's important. I'm not going to tell you whether a haircut is good or not based on how it looks, because it's your taste. You know, as long as you can do something, as long as you say what you're going to do and then you do what you wanted to, then it's good as far as I'm concerned. At Slate, you know, we've got a really nice thing, like the motto is that, you know, we give you the tools to be able to create your vision. Now as I elevate that up, we can see, Sophie?
Yeah, I've got it on there.
You can see, got this nice shape where we're just coming in slightly longer towards these edges. So as that comes down over this hair on the underneath, we can just see we've got these little excess lengths coming through. And now into that last panel. Can you see what I mean, where I've got this kind of flatter in the middle? You can see it's disconnected, because it's shorter again. Longer again, sorry, than the shorter underneath, which is again, is going to encourage and evoke movement. But then as we've got that length through there, what does short hair do to long hair? It pushes it, yeah? Short hair's the bully. So that's naturally encouraging this hair to kick out through here, which I'm liking. It's looking really cool. Okay, now our last section. And then I'm going to dry it and refine it for you before Sophie passes out. I need to cook her chorizo stew afterwards. Okay guys, so again I'm going to work vertically first of all through here, so in the centre. Taking a vertical section, removing the hair that I'm not working on. Now the reason I can now mix up all these lengths in the underneath is because all the lengths I'm cutting now are going to be longer than the hair I've previously cut. So that's why, for example, I would always start, when doing something like this, I would always start in my bottom zone, alright? As soon as I come up, if I started at this top, I'd have to cut it, clip it away and then work the next bit. It's really, really difficult. So always start from that underneath and work through. Now we can see we've got all these different areas of disconnection through here, which are all just going to really nicely blend towards the end. So we've got the shortness in the back here, we've got 3 different zones in there, and we've got this length in the front, which I want this length to be longer and fall over. And I'm going to work from the centre. I'm just going to start on the widest point of the head, so the highest point of the head. I'm going to have a little think about my length, where I want my length to be. And start to work in that nice, flat, quite flat cutting line. But what this means is, by doing something quite flat at the top, so quite square, as you can see I'm going to be flattening out the widest point of the head, leaving the length towards the crown and towards the front hairline. So again, that hair's going to be pushing out, encouraging and evoking movement. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is start to over-direct everything back to the middle. So I'm going to carry on working vertically and start to over-direct everything back to the middle. Okay? A little wild moment there. So again, as humans we have tendencies to pull things towards us. That's why I'm standing on this side of the head. When I work the other side, I will stand on that other side of the head. That will help me create a good balance. So guys, let us know what you're thinking, let us know what you think of the shape. If you have any questions, let me know. Please like and share the video. Please let us know where you're tuning in from. If you're watching this back, and you have any questions for me, even when it's not live, I will go back through and I will answer your questions later on as well.
How long have you been cutting hair? Says Margaret.
Hi Margaret, thank you for the question. I've been cutting hair now for, how old am I? 28, 12 years now. Was 12 years ago when I did my first ever haircut in training. So yeah, 12 years now. Let us know how long you've all been cutting hair. How long have you been at it? I wonder if we've got some people that have been doing it for a long time, some not very long at all.
A lot of people in America.
Oh, great. Thank you all so much for tuning in. It really does mean a lot to us.
Nicole's been cutting hair for 18 years.
18? Wow.
She's in Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Pauline says hi from Miami.
Hello. Miami, wow. Amazing. Love to go to Miami. Right guys, so as you can see, I'm in my body here. I've just turned the doll head around though. So I am actually standing on the opposite side now. I'm just working in the same way.
Karen says hi from Montreal.
Hello.
Reminds me of our quiz question.
That's exactly what I just thought.
We had a quiz the other night and we had a question of what's the capital of Canada, and we were all very torn. The answer.
We didn't get it right, did we?
No.
Ontario, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, no, Ottawa.
Oh, Ottawa, sorry, yeah.
Ottawa. Oh, I don't remember actually.
I think it was Ottawa, yeah. I'm sure soon say. What salon are you from? Says Cheryl.
So I've worked in a few different salons in my time. At the moment, I do clients 2 or 3 days a week in a salon called Taylor, which is in the East End of London, Shoreditch. So I split my time between doing a few clients here and there, and I do education the rest of the time. At Slate Education, we have an academy in Soho, which, like I said earlier, we've just started to expand, or we will do when the builders are allowed to anyway. So we're going to be expanding. So from our first floor academy, we're then going to have 3 floors. So it's going to be really awesome. So I spend most of my time in the academy in Soho, or travelling. But we won't be travelling for a little while, I don't think, sadly. So we're going to try and keep doing as many of these lives for you as possible. Me and Michael and Davide, we're going to, so you get a bit of a different flavour as well. And I really try and mix up the sort of things that we do, so it doesn't feel too like you're getting the same thing, so you're getting a real nice variety.
Amanda says you have gorgeous hair.
Oh, thanks, Amanda. Thanks very much.
Looks like it needs a brush, but...
Probably does need a bit of a brush. Right, so what I've done now is on my last panel through here, that big diamond panel that we had, I've just worked everything to the middle so we can see what we've got as we've created now this shape through that top area. So we're flat, okay, from the back to the front, so flattening out the widest point of the head, leaving length towards the front, leaving length towards the crown, and then we're flattening out the centre here and leaving more length as the hair comes away from the head. So it's going to push this hair out much more. And that, guys, is my basic shape. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start to blow dry the hair down, and then I'm going to refine the outlines a bit. Okay, so I won't take too long doing that. Please now, if you have any questions, please do ask.
Katie says, completely random and sorry but it's inappropriate, but how can I practice holding my shears like that?
Okay, very quickly for you guys as well. Okay, right, have a little look. So from here, what I do, there's no right and wrong really. For me, as long as your wrist is straight, you don't want your wrist like that because that's just going to cause you problems. So either here, okay, and obviously I'm only focusing on moving the thumb. Now what I tend to do is I keep my arms straight and I drop these down. So if I close my fingers here, okay, and what I'm going to do is just close my fingers, push that down, and I don't actually put my thumb in, my thumb rests. This way I have much more manoeuvrability of where I'm going to cut hair, but still by keeping my wrist nice and straight, so I'm almost like at a right angle, if that makes sense. So I hope that helps. I'm just going to put a little bit of something, don't have anything. So although we've got all these intricate sections and designs in it, actually the haircut should look quite connected. But if we did connect it, it would look like a proper old 70s or 80s mullet. So I wanted to make it a bit more modern, a bit more interesting for you. And for me to like the taste a little bit more as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a wrap drying technique just to try and flatten the hair out a little bit. I don't want too much body through here, through the top especially. So I really just want to start to try and flatten the root out, just mainly through that top area. And then I'll refine the shape for you. Guys, like I said before, on the 15th of May, I'm doing another live, okay, which is for Curlio Project Academy in Poland, which will be really good fun. We're going to do something more of a graduated feel, so much heavier, much stronger, fuller shape, much more graphic. So get tuned into that as well, it'll be really good fun. There's been some amazing people doing, they've been collaborating with, so JB just did a live from M&P. And we've had Vlad did one from Sensi Education, so go and check their stuff out, they've got some really cool collaborations going on. So guys, now when this is dry, with the refining, you could refine for hours and hours and hours on end, alright? Now obviously, it's not that fun to watch, so I'm not going to do that for you, but I will refine the shape until I'm happy with it. But remember, refining is such an important thing, you can keep working at it and keep working at it. I think the key is, in the salon, because we only have 45 minutes or an hour or however long, you can only do the best you can do in the time that you're given. So, you know, if it's the shape that's important, the basic shape, then get the basic shape in. If you have time to refine, you have time to refine. Don't beat yourself up about not being able to get it 100% in that amount of time, because nobody can, you know. It's about doing the best you can in the time that you've been given. I think timing for precision cutters is always a big thing, as you can see. I've been an hour and a half doing this already, so we like to take our time there because we love doing what we do. So I think when we have these opportunities to spend a bit of time cutting hair and having fun and playing around with it and falling in love with it again, then we should really use that time, you know. Guys, let me know if you have any questions at all. Let me know what you think of the shape. I think it's coming along quite nice. I'm going to need to do a little bit of point cutting through it. But as a whole, I'm really happy with how it's falling and how the sectioning has worked for me. Because now I have all these separations and I'm going to blend all the different sections with pointing. That's how I'm going to blend it.
Amanda wants to know if there's a secret to growing your hair that long.
Buy some really nice hats.
And Eloisa said, heard that Dyson dryers weren't that great. What are your thoughts, and have you got any other recommendations?
That's interesting. You know, I really like the Dyson. The reason being because it's really light, it's really quiet. The only slightly annoying thing is when it switches off and you have to change the filter halfway throughout the day. But, you know, if you do it once a day, then it tends to work quite well, I think. It depends, you know, depends what you want from a hairdryer, really. For me, it's got a nice flow, it's got a nice soft, they've got these different size nozzles, and it's the best diffuser I've ever used, so I quite like it. But you know, I've used GHD dryers before, which I really like. I like Parluxes, apart from, you know, some of the guys at work say they blow up a little bit too regularly. So I think it's like a pair of scissors, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? They're all obviously like, you know, well, the majority are good quality. It's just about your feel and whether you like it or not. Your taste. So we're getting there now with the blow dry. Blow dryers, you know, we always underestimate how important I think blow drying is. I think you spend all this time cutting a beautiful shape, you should really give it the time to blow dry it as well and make it look how you wanted to see it when you were cutting it. You know, if the hair was slightly finer here, maybe I would just be using my fingers. But I don't actually have any products at home at all here where we are. So what I've actually put in the hair just to smooth it through a little bit is I've used a little bit of conditioner to blow dry the hair, and that's just going to help slim it slightly for me. But I don't have any hairspray or anything to finish it with, so it's going to be a very natural finish.
Do you think that a cut should enhance a person's natural hair state / flow rather than having to style and finish it to something different?
Yeah, I think it depends on the person that you're working on. I think, some people are really willing and want to put a lot of work into their hair every day, and other people aren't. So that goes back to that whole suitability thing that it's really, suitability is about the person just as much as it is about the bone structure and the face shape. I think really, like my personal philosophy in that genre is really that I like the hair to, if she can, do very little to it and it still look nice, then for me that's my job done. I think that she should be able to move the hair any which way, and it should still forward some beauty, because there should be a good strong technique in it, and that's what technique is. It allows you to play about a little bit more of the hair, and as you move it, everything just blends really nicely. So guys, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to come through and just start using a point cutting technique through this top area. So I'm liking the way it's sitting actually. I'm going to play around a little bit with the fringe maybe. But I'm liking the general feel of it. You can just see in here, where the hair is quite dense, I just want to really loosen up this edge as it all falls, okay? So I'm just going to come through. Now for some reason, whenever I point cut, I like to use a buoy, so quite a wide tooth comb. I love this comb actually for everything. I think it's a gorgeous comb. And what I'm doing is I'm not coming in too much of an angle, I'm coming straight into the hair shaft, straight down. Now with pointing, the more of an angle I come in at, the more I'm going to lose, the more hair I'm going to lose, so the more I'm going to put in, okay? With the pointing, what I'm doing is coming straight in, I'm just softening the edge and how that's going to fall. Now I always say about pointing into hair that it's not so much a removal of weight, it's breaking up the weight. If you imagine that's the hair in your fingers, when you're pointing into it, essentially what you're doing is that. So the weight is still there, but it's dispersed. So you're dispersing the weight, you're moving the weight around. Guys, let me know what you're thinking of the shape, how it's looking. Let me know if you've got any questions. Hopefully you've been able to take something from this. What I'm going to do is just come over now this way, move the head slightly. Start to pick all the hair up, ignoring the previous sections, and just break into it. And what that's going to do is just going to blend all my disconnected sections together. And do that throughout the haircut. So if you can run here for a sec, Sophie, just quickly. What you can really see is you can see all these different sections, you can see all this disconnection that we've got. And what I'm going to do is just start to keep all the disconnection, but just start to add a little bit of blend to it.
Davide says, well done, James, looking good.
Thank you, Davide. Excited to see your next razor haircut. We talk about, Davide doing the razor because he's done this razor course with us, which is awesome. We're really excited to be able to get that running off the ground. but he's an incredible cutter in, you know, using all tools. He's an amazing hairdresser. You should check him out, check his Instagram out.
Corinna says, definitely the best mullet haircut I have seen this quarantine. Looks lovely.
Oh, thank you so much, Corinna. So now what I feel like I want to do here, so I just want to start to open up the fringe a little bit, open up the front of the face, open up in here somewhere. So this is when I said, you know, everything's been really soft. I want to add a little bit of strength to it here. So I'm just going to come in with the freehand technique. Just really start to open up this here around that eye. Just working with how the hair's naturally kicking. And what I should have as well is these lengths from that front can always just sort of sit over the hair and underneath, which I think is quite cool.
Just mind their eyeball in real life.
Yeah, no. Yeah, that's the nice thing about these dolls is you can just cut their
Slide
eyeball.
straight over the eyeball.
So when I'm doing these sort of things, I'll cut it and assess. You know, if we wanted to, we could really get into, you know, playing around with these. We could, just to something to like talk to you about, just to kind of show you some different options. If you wanted to push this mullet into something that looked more of a mullet, but having something still quite modern and graphic, you could literally just come and just, you know, pop in a little line in here on one side, both sides. You know, you could take that back up quite a bit and kind of maybe work in something through here if you wanted to. But for me, for today, I'm actually really liking how this is sitting. So one last little look. You kind of got two different elements of that fringe there, which I quite like.
Kathleen enjoyed the heck out of that.
Thanks, Kathleen. So did I. I'm glad you enjoyed it. So guys, this is my version of a little mullet, a little lockdown mullet. Alright, I really hope you like it. I'm going to do a really quick recap for you and just go over what we were. Now, if you're watching this back or you tuned in late, you can always just rewind to the beginning to have a look at the sections. Just being told by my cameraman to move. How's that? Mm-hmm. So go back to the beginning to check out the sectioning pattern. Now feel free to try something like this as well, using different lengths, adjusting the sectioning patterns. Remember, where the lowest points of the section patterns are is where most of your weight is going to be sitting throughout the haircut. Okay, so what we started off with was a zone in this bottom area through here from the occipital down. We worked vertically, cutting length from shorter into longer. Okay, shorter into longer, and a layered cutting angle, alright? Working square horizontally. So, okay, then what we had is we had these sections that came up into this, alright, and then back down and around. And what we did is we started on our highest point, which will be in there somewhere. Okay, there it was. We started working our highest point, cutting shorter into longer, alright? Then from there, what we did is we started to work following the head shape round, working on the base, shorter into longer, which gave us this disconnection through this underneath, which if I pull out, you can see still, yeah? So this disconnection underneath, shorter into longer. Then for balance purposes, I did exactly the same on the other side. Okay, get my balance, work through, and then checking horizontally that we're nice following the head shape in the back, nice and connecting, no corners. Alright? We then worked as this section came round into the front, incorporating all that front hairline with this layering technique working round the head. Alright? Now that then, because of the hairline, the way that it jumps up, created this cool little fringe for us, alright? Now we had another section in the back here that we just worked again shorter into longer, making sure that it was longer than the hair in the underneath, okay? Working all the way through, okay, square horizontally. And then in this front bit we left this big diamond section through the top, even longer, worked with a square flat cutting line. I'm looking at Sophie laughing, sorry, got me. With a square flat cutting line, okay, and we're flattening out the widest points of the head, leaving length towards the front and leaving length towards the crown. Alright, then overdirected everything back to the centre, which then gave it this, you know, this really nice horizontal concave shape through the top. Right, then at the end, all I've really done is I've just used a wrap dry and just taken up from this underneath and just started to play around with this fringe area, giving it a little bit of personality and making it a bit more interesting. Alright, thank you so much everyone for tuning in. Please like and share the video, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.